Good evening. Let us take a few seconds for some of the audiences to join. Okay. So my name is Anwar Shadat Jihan. I am your host today. Today we focus on a major political shift in South Asia, especially the Bangladesh's transition from a democratically elected government to an unconstitutional government, and then again a new elected government following a highly controversial one-sided February 2026 election. Now the 18-month unconstitutional Yunus government period has ended. Prime Minister Tarique Rahman's BNP government took over with a commanding two-thirds majority. But the major political competitor, the major political force, Bangladesh Awami League and its affiliates remain banned under the so-called Anti-Terrorism Act of 2009. While international observers and the international election observation missions described the polls as mechanically credible, the total exclusion of a major political force and ongoing grassroots crackdown pose deep questions about the real democratic representation. What are the long-term consequences of structural exclusion in this environment for Bangladesh's democracy? How can Bangladesh establish authentic political balance? Joining me to discuss these critical issues are Paulo Casaca, former member of the European Union Parliament and former chair of NATO Parliamentary Assembly, and Faiz Ahmed, a young political commentator, analyst, and fraud investigator working at Apple. I would like to welcome you both. Welcome, Paulo. Welcome, Faiz. And I would like to start with Paulo. Paulo, you were talking something about the election missions before the show, that you right away critiqued and protested against the European Union Election Commission's observation. Now that elected government took over, Paulo, what does it do to the government's credibility when their major political competitor is forced out by an illegal executive ban? Can they deliver long-term political stability? What does it say? What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Well, good afternoon to you. I know that you are both in the United States. For me, it's actually good evening, and I think it must be really a good night or a good morning for those who are in Bangladesh. Well, yes, these last elections, we at SADF and especially our main expert on Bangladesh, who is Tapas Bol, a lawyer and a former prosecutor of the International Crimes Tribunal, really debunked the European report that completely ignores all the European Court of Human Rights framework for free and fair elections. I don't think that this report is acceptable, since the main previous issue to any appraisal of elections is exactly to see if opposition was allowed. It was not allowed. If journalists were allowed to do their work, they were not. If there were conditions of freedom, free expression, they were not. And so this is absolutely sidelined. And on the mechanics of the elections, you know that Bangladesh has some good experiences, some not so good, and some actually dreadful We should not forget that in 77, when General Rahman, Zia Rahman, that actually is the inspirator of the present government, when he made a referendum that was more or less like, do you trust me or not? Well, the participation rate was officially over 80%, and he won with 99%. He actually challenged a bit North Korea, fantastic results. So Bangladesh is a country where some of the elections were really very well disputed. I mean, the one that gave rise to the country, for instance. Some others, not really. Some others are in between. And this last one, I do believe that there are no credible conditions to say it was a fair and free election. I don't think it was. I think that there was political agreement between the most strident Islamists and so not so strident or supposedly moderate Islamists to take control of the country. That's what happened. And actually, within the United Nations, you have a very, very good report, questions, a lot of questions that were raised by special rapporteurs of the United Nations, three of them to the Bangladeshi authorities on the lack of conditions for free and fair elections, and especially on the persecution of the opposition. Because if you do not allow opposition, you do not have free and fair elections. So the first report was previous to the election, was from December 2025, signed by three special rapporteurs. Now we have another more extensive report that was made public. It is in the website of the United Nations, and it's not only by three special rapporteurs, six, and it's much firmer on the lack of democratic credentials of the authorities in Bangladesh. So the point is, 2 years ago in 2024, the elections were obviously not what we wanted them to be, since the opposition boycotted. I mean, it was not forbidden, but boycotted the elections. And so you could not have the real competition that defines free and fair elections, participated elections. But you had, I was there and I was impressed at the level of the polling booths by the conditions you had there, regarding all of the accounting of the votes and the procedures by the electoral committee. Well, I have some doubts. I don't think that I could express the same positive opinion. But what we have now in 2026, I think it's much worse. So we went a step back from democracy. We did not go towards democracy. This is a situation that is really very sad, and that calls all the international community to look with objective eyes what is going on in the country.
Thank you, Paulo. Thank you for your insightful input. So it does appear that there is no political balance in Bangladesh today. Now I would like to come about this balance to Faiz. Faiz, with the interim regime over and the BNP holding an overwhelming legislative majority, how is the balance of power shifting on the ground? Are we seeing the growth of independent institutions? Are we seeing destruction? Or are we seeing the country moving towards a one-party state system or two-party state system, the BNP Jamaat state system? To you.
Well, I found the last part of your question really funny because to me, it seems like there's like a there's like a pretend game going on between BNP and Jamaat that okay, you let's form we will form government for 4 years, and Jamaat let you guys take over for the following year. So seems like they have like some sort of a silent agreement. But that being said, thanks for bringing me here, Anwar, once again. I'm happy to like share my insights. So BNP does have this tendency of forming also a one-party state. So if I go back to 1996, when Khaleda Zia attempted to have like a one-party election, but that was resisted by the common public and the vast majority of the Awami League supporters. But this time, obviously after the Awami League government got toppled, we have seen the re-emergence of Jamaat Islami, which is a radical Islamic force in Bangladesh, and according to my opinion, should be treated like a major, even terrorist organization. It's unfortunate that they are also opposition party right now from being like technically banned from Bangladeshi politics. So obviously, from an Awami League perspective, I think the current political landscape raises serious questions about the concentration of power. With the BNP holding an overwhelming legislative majority after the interim period, Bangladesh does risk one form of political dominance with another form of dominance, and rather than truly building institutions. And for decades, Armed League supporters have argued that democratic stability depends on not only on elections but also on protecting the country's founding principles, which is secularism, nationalism, and democracy. And to me, I don't think both Jamaat and BNP, they're not really interested upholding the basic tenets of the constitution. So the concern today is whether the key institutions like the judiciary, the election commission, the civil service, and the law enforcement agencies will remain impartial or become aligned with the interest of the ruling party. And in the end of the day, a healthy democracy requires like a strong and viable opposition. And regardless of one's views about the Awami League, but attempting to like marginalize them, uh, can be really damaging to Bangladesh's sovereignty and also their independence. And there's a possibility that it would weaken the political pluralism in Bangladesh. And adding to that, I think the absence of meaningful opposition rarely strengthens a democracy. It often leads to like less accountability and fewer checks and balances. uh, right now I don't think there's any kind of checks and balances. The if Whenever I check the speeches of the MPs in the parliament, it's more like a circus, to be honest. They don't speak about actual policies, the economic crisis the country is facing. It's more like a soap opera every single day that we are having to watch between Jamaat and BNP, and it seems like they have some sort of a silent agreement that that every few years we will switch powers so that we can prevent the Army League from making a comeback. Yeah, that's what it seems like. It's a circus show at this point. I cannot hear you.
Thank you. Sorry, I was muted. Thank you. It is really indeed a circus show where there is blatant structural exclusion of the major political force. Now, Paulo, despite this structural exclusion, major Western allies have accepted the election results. The EU and the United States have moved swiftly to normalize relations with the new government. Now, given that international observers label these elections competitive, despite the ban, why are global powers avoiding punitive actions or sanctions right now? What geopolitical calculations are keeping Western capitals fully supportive of Prime Minister Tariq Rahman? What do you think?
Well, thank you very much. This is really the crucial question. I mean, I saw the coup coming. The Qatar gates in the European Parliament was is something that the press, unfortunately, did not exploit as it should, because looking at the way that the actors of the Qatar gates dealt with Bangladesh, for me it was obvious that the pressure to install an Islamist regime in Bangladesh was absolutely tremendous. That is what is happening. The issue is exactly to look at the European Union, well, into the United States leaders, and ask them, well, you put out an Awami League government that was secular, that followed certainly much more democratic actions and principles than the present ones, that never aligned with threats to our free system, and never aligned with jihadism, contrarily to what happens to the present authorities. Terrorism made in the name of jihad. Well, and you put it out to put these people in. And why did you do it? I mean, what is the benefit of the United States or the European Union? Because here I can say that the European Union parroted completely, 100%, everything that the deep state of the United States did. It's very interesting because the European Union tries to sell an image where it has a lot of different opinions and a lot of different calculus and interests regarding Iran and so on. But regarding Bangladesh, it absolutely parroted everything that was done by the deep state of the United States. No autonomy whatsoever. Well, in the end of the day, what do I think? I think that they speak about interests, geopolitics, and so on, but it's lobbies. And it is the Qatari lobby that really weighted the most and is driving all of the West, that really, the West does not understand the importance of Bangladesh. I mean, if you really ask to the common people, but even to the leaders, I mean, Bangladesh, what do you think it is, its importance, its history? They don't know. I mean, they don't know that Bangladesh is one of the biggest countries of the world, that is an ancient civilization, that is actually the major playing ground, a major battlefield between democratic and Islamist forces. They know nothing of this. And they are very happy to go on all of the disinformation strategy that is painting the Awami League like a dictatorship, which was not. I mean, the Awami League, I mean, I don't think that there is any ideal democratic government in the world, but of course, I wouldn't call it the Awami League an ideal one. And we could, of course, spend hours speaking about these fragilities and the things that did not go as they should. But it was we are living in a real world, and not in a fantasy world. And if we compare it with the alternative, I mean, we have the alternative now in power. I mean, there is no doubt. I mean, the Awami League was much more free and democratic than the present authorities. That's a reality that whoever looks at the facts with independence will have to admit. And so this is the big question. I mean, the West did the same thing, in over 50 years ago, when the Bangladesh was created. And at the time, it was, this geopolitical reasoning, because The reasoning came from actually from early after the Second World War, from the Cold War. It was the Soviets wanting to get to the warm waters of the Indic, and so you had to make a barrier, and the barrier would be not not India, because India was considered not trustworthy, a bit like socialist, and so not really trustworthy, but would come from the Islamist bloc that would cut the Soviet Union from approaching India. And this made no sense at the time, but although Mr. Kissinger, that is supposed to be really the most bright politician, he was the one the main sponsor of this theory. This, I don't think it made any sense at the time, but now even less. I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever, because Russia is not the big power any longer. Actually, China is the big challenger of the United States and of the European Union, and of course, China is very happy with the present regime change in Bangladesh. It could not be happier, and so this apparent, agreement is something that makes no sense, and it really the issue, in my opinion, is to get facts, very clear facts, independent facts. I think that these bodies of the United Nations, these rapporteurs, it was one, then there were three, and now there are six, and I think there might be even more, because it's compelling. The reality is compelling, and go with these people, with the facts, publicize them as much as you can, and confront the decision makers with the situation and ask them, why are you doing this? Why are you supporting a dictatorship that is actually bringing no benefit, not to Bangladesh, because no economic development, no freedom, but to you as well? I mean, what is the benefit for the European Union or for the United States? I mean, there is none. And so it's what these leaders, these Western leaders, have to be confronted with is with what is their real agenda? Why are they doing what they are doing? Why they are lying? Why they are claiming things that are absolutely preposterous, like these free and fair elections in 2026 in Bangladesh, and they have to answer.
Thank you, Paulo. This double standard of the Western countries is very disturbing, because in 2018, in 2024, there were two elections. In 2014, there was an election about all of which the Western communities were furious about the credibility of those elections. But this time, we have seen an election with a major force, more than 60% of the population completely barred unlawfully. So this is no election at all. As Faiz said, this is a circus show. Now, Faiz, in 2024, in the so-called uprising, the meticulously designed conspiracy, the students, the frustration of the young population was a major issue, the frustration of the youth. So seeing what is happening today, do you think that there is actually any reform going on in terms of the student activist? Because you are a young person, you connect with so many young people back home. Do you think that we are seeing any reform in the student politics? When Student League, Bangladesh Chhatro League, remains banned, when thousands of their activists are either barred or are away from home, what is your thought? Is there any reform going on in the student politics? And you have also lived in the United States, you have studied in the United States, you have seen student politics here, right? What do you see the difference? Where is the difference to you?
So yeah, I mean, thank you for this really important question. But before I even answer this question, it's interesting, you mentioned the word meticulously designed, so-called revolution. So Before we get to that, I would like to define the word meticulously designed. So, what happened in 2024 so-called uprising was, uh, a lot of these radical forces, they used the students as human shields, and it's unfortunate that it had to like come to that level. And you right now we are seeing testimonies from the former advisors of Muhammad Yunus that there's credible evidence of snipers during that so-called revolution. It totally, totally discredits this so-called revolution that it even happened, because it seems like they somehow they hired a bunch of snipers to shoot at their own people, and then they made them martyrs like Abu Said. So there's credible evidence that if if that even was a real revolution against the government, because it seems like it was a very well designed plan, and I felt that I had to like define the word meticulous, because I don't think that has been done before. But yeah, to get to your question, one of the central so-called promises of the 2024 uprising was that it would create a new political culture, particularly on university campuses. Many students, they did take on the streets to demand accountability, meritocracy, and an end to like partisan intimidation. But right now, we are seeing that more and more students are asking questions that whether those promises and aspirations have been fulfilled. From the perspective of almost like half of the population, there are growing concerns that some of the practices are ones which were criticized is in student politics are reappearing again under a different party ban. And use For instance, last year we saw the so-called farcical election within the student parties, where the Jamaat, where the student wing of Jamaat Islami, the Shibir, they ended up winning the elections, that which has never really happened in the last 50 something years of Bangladesh being an independent country. So obviously, then once they took control of the university campuses, we have seen credible evidence where students who are pro Awami League in their political views, they're not allowed to like take exams. They're not allowed to take their admission exams and take part in student activities. They're being barred from being students themselves. And even during the time of the Awami League, like Paolo mentioned, they were not this repressive. They did not prevent people from taking exams and practicing like basic fundamental rights. We did not see such harsh practices happening under the banner of Chhatr League when they were taking when they were like under the control of student campuses. Obviously, some isolated incidents happened. I'm not denying that has happened, but at the same time, we have seen that a lot of the bad actors, they got they infiltrated the Chhatr League themselves. And I'm not just saying that. There's credible evidence. For instance, in 2018, when the Buet student Abrar Fahad was murdered mercilessly by four students. Initially, all of us thought that the Chhatr League were the bad actors, but over time, right now it has proven that it was actually the Chhatr Shibir who infiltrated the Chhatr League and then ended up murdering the student. And obviously, Muhammad Yunus's regime, they ended up releasing those people. So obviously, the reputation of Chhatr League was tarnished for over a decade. And I myself, I'm guilty of also misunderstanding the Chhatr League. And over gradually we have seen that there was some huge infiltration going on. And honestly, even some Awami League leaders have to take the blame for that, because they were way too greedy in exchange of bribes, and they did not analyze who they're letting in, who they're letting into their student groups. So yeah, eventually, right now, obviously, the BNP and the Jamaat, they have taken control of the campuses, and uh, the students, the ordinary students, their aspirations remain unfulfilled. I think a lot of when I speak to students, they're like, none of the promises that were made during the so-called revolution has been fulfilled so far. It's just, instead there's more damage to the campuses. It's more radicalized, and the reputation of Dhaka University has been tarnished so much, because it used to be during the 70s, it used to be one of the top universities in South Asia, but right now it is, I'm sorry to say this, it's just a madrasa where a bunch of radicalized people are being allowed to like take admission. And it is vastly different from from obviously the university campuses in the US, because we don't really here, like, we don't really tolerate any kind of radicalism in campuses. I mean, obviously we have religious groups, we have fraternities, sororities, and people, they know how to have fun in campuses for 4 years. And I think in Bangladesh, like, overall, I mean, when I just see it objectively, students have forgotten to be students, and they're engaged in all these meaningless politics. In the end of the day, the goal should be go to school, major in whatever subject you are interested in, and get a degree, and be a valuable member of the society. But unfortunately, that has not been happening in Bangladesh, although the good members of Chhatr League, they have tried their best over the last few decades. But it's sad to see that even the Chhatr League got infiltrated by so many bad actors. So yeah.
Thank you, Pais. The infiltration is a really crucial question that needs to be asked, and the leaders, those who are in charge, has a responsibility. They have a responsibility to answer to us how these people had even post in student wing of the Awami League. Now, Paulo, India shares a massive border with Bangladesh, and India has historically had a good working relationship with Awami League, and had the relationship with BNP had a lot of friction. But what do you think India is doing now to adapt to the new reality diplomatically?
Anwar, I think that India is really the crucial factor. But before answering your question, allow me to go a bit back to the issues under discussion. It is my view that Sheikh Hasina power since 2009 was made of some appeasement tactics. I'm not with this. I'm not saying that's good or it's bad, because one would have to see to know if there were any alternatives. So she tried to appease the military. The military establishment actually got a lot of power, got a lot of business opportunities that were given to it. And a lot of the corruption that people speak about has to do with it, by the way, and a lot of appeasement to the Islamist establishment, thinking that she could isolate these Jamati leaders that were responsible for all the massacres of the genocide and all the crimes, and that if they would not identify with them, a radical Islam by itself would not be a problem. She made these two moves, and this could be seen, and the results could be seen even from an outsider like me. They were quite obvious. And in the end of the day, what happened was that, the military establishment obviously was the ultimate reason why she was kicked out of power, because the military establishment said, we don't support you. We will do nothing from for preventing you to go away. And the Islamists' background actually revealed to be, the fabric of this Bangladesh that wants to become Pakistan again. So I think these were the most important issues. And perhaps this infiltration is just a reflection of this reality. She did it. Possibly it would not be simple to do otherwise. I mean, I'm not criticizing, I'm just observing. That's the reality. And so, I mean, the reality was that in 2024, the international community actually could have pressed the situation to go on a different direction, could have pressed the BNP to go into the elections, and could have pressed the establishment to say, well, the electoral process must be completely transparent and there must be an observation, a very crucial observation, and there are things that I doubt were done now. Everything indicates that quite on the contrary, but very simple things that would contribute to change the situation. If you could, if any electoral poll would publish the results at the door, other than giving the material to a van that goes to the electoral commission, and so if it could be immediately verified, the sort of engineering that I think that obviously happened at this time in 2026 could not have happened, or could not have happened the same way without leaving, obvious traits. For instance, so I mean, the international community actually left this pressure, and in over 50 years of history, very seldom, perhaps only once, a true democratic election without pressure from the street or rebellion in the street changed powers. Yeah, perhaps once, in 2008. In 2008. Otherwise, power changed always because either military push or because of rebellion. So people were pushed and say, okay, we will have something. We had 15 years of Awami League. They are becoming, too entrenched, too much corruption, and so we want to change, and so we will do something. Well, Yunus had a good image. Everyone thought that he would do something different. Nobody thought of him as someone really only interested in his own money. That was the reality. And so I think people embarked easily on this process. And the international community knew very well what was going on. And of course, when a moment came, the military establishment gave the coup de grace to Sheikh Hasina, and that's the way things happened. And so it's important, to see this, to see how we can make things different in the future. I think that it's essential that within the present conservative, BNP party. I mean, I met a lot of people from the BNP that were reasonable people. And I think people that, at least when I met them and discussed with them, they would never thought about prohibiting the Awami League, which is completely a dictatorial measure. I mean, the BNP has to be different. Otherwise, without an opposition, a real opposition, it's different. It's not possible.
How do you think how India is dealing with this?
Yeah. Well, you see, India. Sorry, you are absolutely right. Sorry. No, India. I think that the whole of the fanatic Islamists always think about. The Jamati League. You just have to read the scripts. He wrote immensely. He was really a very prolific writer. Maulana Maududi. And he is very clear on his vision. His vision is that India was once territory of Islam, so it has to come again territory of Islam. That's it. So actually, what is happening in Bangladesh is a step to take care of India. I have no doubts about that. I never did, by the way. Well, India tries to to act with political realism. I would guess that it was India that said, "We are going to be, it's going to be, we will not accept to have a Jamati government. So whatever you do, you don't put Jamaat." I think it was India because the result was engineered. They put the BNP, but they could have put the Awami League as well. And that would not be very difficult to change the figures to this result. They didn't do it. I think India was in it, and India is trying as much as possible to come along with the present authorities. Of course, it cannot, betray someone that was really a good friend like Sheikh Hasina. They cannot leave her to the revenge of the Islamists, but they are trying their best. They are overreaching themselves to get into good terms with the BNP government. I think that time will tell what the result will be. I'm not very optimistic. I don't think it will work. Regarding, between the BNP and Jamaat, I really think it's a bit like, like the East European countries after the Second World War, where you have a communist party that was not immediately in government, and you had the real opposition was in prison, but then you had someone that was not very far from the communist. And they were in government, for some years, depending on the country, and till the moment that here that's the Communist Party of the Soviet Union that has the control. So this is it. Okay, and this moment will come. If things continue the way they are. Well, I think that we are in for a long struggle. I think that the fundamental element is the Bangladeshi people. Bangladeshi people want freedom, want the ability to choose its own government. I think they know very well they don't have it. Wants development. And I think that the present regime will not give none of this to the Bangladeshi people. So the Bangladeshi people, one way or the other, will start rebelling against the state of play. I think it will happen. I don't know when and how, but it will happen. And the most important thing is really for those who are friends of Bangladesh and its people to work within the international community to show the truth, to bring facts to the forefront, and to say, well, listen, we are worse with this system that we were before, and there is no alternative than having the real opposition, that is the party that made Bangladesh into existence, to be legalized and to be allowed into free and fair elections. I think that's the way forward.
Thank you so much, Paulo, for the insightful inputs. Now, Faiz, from a political commentary standpoint, how has BNP successfully neutralized international pushback regarding the ban? Because that ban did not follow any due process. It was done through an executive order. So what narrative strategies are they using to maintain foreign investor confidence, if there remains any, which I highly doubt?
So one parallel I can draw is the BNP and also, Muhammad Yunus. What they try to do here is they try to like play the playbook regarding how Nazi Germany was banned, the Hitler's Nazi Party. So during World War II, like after the fall of the Third Reich, we saw that the Allied powers they divided Germany into like four parts, and there was the Nuremberg trial where the top Nazi officers they faced trial and judgment. So what they tried to do was they tried to like portray the Awami League as the Nazi party and Sheikh Hasina as Hitler, and whatever the so-called revolution that happened in July as Sheikh Hasina murdering people, and and also because they also he also tried to portray that there were mass graves inside the Dham Mundi 32 or at the prime minister's residence, but obviously there's no evidence of such mass graves ever. So they tried to play that playbook, and they're still trying to do that. What they're trying to show the international community is, okay, this is a basic standard political process where the Awami League is rejected by the people, just like how the Germans rejected the Nazis, and the Awami League doesn't have a place in Bangladeshi society, and people have firmly rejected them. So we are going to form some farcical trials and place the death penalty, the so-called death penalty, on former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, and they'll receive their justice. This is how they escape their accountability. But we all know in terms of reality, like the BNP and Jamaat, if they really have to eliminate the Awami League, they should face them electorally. So like a free and fair election where let's leave it up to the people. If they want to reject the Awami League, they'll vote for them, and that will provide a clear answer if the Awami League truly doesn't have a say in Bangladeshi society anymore. So I think that's how their approach should be. But unfortunately, they're basically framed this as a situation that happened during World War II in Nazi Germany. So, and they're trying to portray the July so-called revolution as the Holocaust. So I think this is the playbook that they're trying to play. So their approach has been largely to frame the ban not as an exclusion of a major political party, but as a part of the broader democratic transition and accountability process. And I think internationally that narrative is often easier to defend because they can emphasize reform, stability, and moving beyond the political conflicts of the past, rather than focusing on the implications of excluding on one of the country's largest political forces. And at the same time, I think the BNP has been careful to reassure foreign governments, development partners, and investors that economic policy will remain predictable and that Bangladesh remains open for business, rather than making the political ban the centerpiece of its international messaging. I think it has focused on, let's say, macroeconomic stability, trade, investment opportunities, and government reforms. So they're open. They're pretty much saying, whatever happened, let bygones be bygones. Bangladesh is open for business, and let's conduct business as usual. So that has been their playbook so far. Can you hear?
Muted.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Faiz.
Yeah.
We are nearing the end, so that will be my last question to Paulo. Paulo, the UN is using this 1400 death report, the report itself is highly controversial and one-sided, right? The UN and other international human rights organizations seem to be in cahoot with this civilian government in Bangladesh right now. So at this situation, in this scenario, what options are available within international human rights treaties, or global legal framework to challenge a party ban enforced by a elected civilian government? Can external human rights bodies influence a sovereign government that has an overwhelming two-thirds majority?
Yeah, this is exactly the point I tried to stress in the beginning. This report of the United Nations is absolutely a disgrace. It is a disgrace that the responsible of the United Nations Human Rights Commission accepted to the incumbents from Yunus to do it. You know, Yunus has been pampered by all United Nations bodies for decades, and this report is absolutely shameful. But there are new positions from special rapporteurs. I call your attention to them. One of them was published very recently. That is really, you read it, and it is absolutely clear from this institutional United Nations document that there is a tremendous problem with basic freedom and democracy with the present authorities, and that banning Awami League has no justification whatsoever. So it's written there. I mean, the United Nations is really unfortunately, into a big decay, but there are still a lot of people that are reliable and that say the evidence. And so this affair of the Awami League, like the Nazi Party, yes, it's a bit the the propaganda of the Islamists that they see no boundaries, and especially when the ignorance is big, it pays, to defy all reality, and to fetishize as much as possible. It's something that they do very easily. But there is the international community. Some parts of the international community are actually reacting, and this is very important. And it's from there that we will reach somewhere. Well, you see, regarding the openness of the Bangladesh and the economy and so on, I actually do not believe that this administration will be able to do it. But let's wait and see what will happen. I think that we should not dismiss in block the whole of the international community, because there are some very important elements coming through from the international community itself.
You, Paulo.
And speaking of the Nazi playbook, is just an anecdote that I wanted to share. So a couple of days ago, I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw this guy. Like he's educated in the West and all that. So he was comparing Bangladesh founder Sheikh Mujib to Hitler. And the recently, I think the Awami League leader who passed away, Mr. Tofail Ahmed, he compared him with Himmler. And he made these absurd claims that together they formed the Rakhi Bahini back in the 70s, and they were basically the SS of that time, and they conspired about killing 30,000 Jashad members back in the day. But interestingly, when I tried to find the identity of those 30,000 so-called individuals, I cannot find anything. So yeah, it's just they're basically still surviving on the lies and propaganda, and yeah, they're making these absurd comparisons there. So yeah, that's just one thing that I want to share.
Okay, last question to you, Faiz.
Yeah.
Going off script, completely off script. Where do we go from here? What we, the young generation, can do? What Awami League as a party can do? What the various international committees and international organizations under the Awami League umbrella can do? And what different route these international committees need to take, in your opinion?
To be honest, I mean, this is a very tricky and tough road ahead, because every single day when I follow these developments, I get deeply discouraged sometimes when I see that Muhammad Yunus is like, eyeing the top job at the UN. So, it seems like everything, like all the odds are against us at the moment. You know, but all we can continue to do is, speak out and, you know, just keep on communicating with different international actors and agencies. But it seems like even the international agencies, they're not going to pay attention, because in the end of the day, it seems like the entire game is rigged, and somehow the geopolitical game is like very much rigged against the Awami League at this point. But one thing that I can recommend is like keep making the noise over and over again, because that's all they can do at this point. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest asset of the Awami League is the people, because no matter how much comparisons they make with Hitler's Nazi Germany, no one supported the Nazis after the war. Germany went through a formal apology process to the entire world, and I think the Awami League Party is nowhere near that, absolutely nowhere near that. So one of the biggest assets the party has, it's still a huge support base in Bangladesh itself. And as long as they have that, they will always be in the picture, or they will always be relevant, I think. And as long as the supporters are making the noises every day, I think there's every chance of defying all the geopolitical odds. Yeah.
Bangladesh is a nation of hero. Bangladesh is a heroic nation. We have proven track record of defying all the odds. Everything, every major power was against Bangladesh. Everything was rigged against Bangladesh in 1971. But 3 million people gave their blood, their lives for Bangladesh. So Bangladesh will defy all the odds again, and people will be at the forefront of it, with the Awami League with them. So what we are seeing is a complete destabilization in Bangladesh right now, and with such structural exclusion of a major political force, no democracy can sustain in the long run. And as Faiz said, as Mr. Paulo has said, we all have a duty here. We all have a duty to keep speaking up, keep raising concern, keep making our voices heard. At the end of the day, truth will prevail, and truth will prevail with the Awami League. Thank you, Paulo, for your time, and thank you, Faiz, for your time. Signing off.
Thank you.